My name is Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, and I am a marine biologist. I think the first thing we should consider is, do we need new technology? I think sometimes the answer is absolutely yes. Sometimes the answer is like, you just felt like you needed to do something new. And so being focused on technology as a tool for solving a problem, or a way for making something easier, or a way for connecting people more deeply, or a way to facilitate collaboration, as opposed to just like, here's this new thing and now everyone has to use it. Like, why do we need it? And technology is like often really cool, right? I get it. But sometimes it's just a way to keep busy, or like a way to get excited about new things, as opposed to a way to make the world better, or a way to make our work easier. And I also think this quest for efficiency is a bit misguided sometimes, because like ideas come from brainstorming, right? Which is inherently an inefficient process. So to the extent that technology and all these tools can support problem solving and encourage creativity and collaboration, then I'm all for it. But sometimes I'm just like, why do we need a new whatever? Do we really need a new? Do we spend all the time and energy to transition people to a new platform or teach people to use a new tool? And sometimes the answer is honestly yes. But I think it's a question we don't ask nearly often enough. Like, what is this really for? Like, what purpose does this really serve in our work and in our ability to make the changes that we need to see in the world? And I think I'm perhaps more sensitive to this now than I used to be. Now that I'm over 40, now that my mother is in her mid-70s and trying to like figure out new technologies, and she's just like, do I actually need to learn this, or can I just skip this one? I'm like, actually, you could totally skip this. Like, how do I watch your Instagram stories? And I'm like, oh, okay. Tutorial coming right up. You need that one. She needs to know, right? She needs to be able to keep tabs on me. So yeah, I think it's just approaching technology with questions, not with resistance or distaste, but with a question to why, why and how, because the how we deploy technologies is critical, right? Because people who are who weren't raised with technology, who are new to it, how are we making room for everybody? How are we making things simple and elegant and clear and solution-oriented? That's my obsession, is like, what problem are we solving with this? Because there are a lot of problems in the world, and I just don't have a lot of time for things that aren't focused on problem solving for the climate crisis, which is extremely dangerous, or things that bring us joy, right? Because like, the point of life is not just to be like a miserable workaholic. It is to get to enjoy living on this planet with each other and the rest of nature. And I think so often we like in climate and environmental work get so focused on like preventing the apocalypse that we forget about like why that's even important. Because like, being a human is pretty cool if we can figure out how to do that right. Like getting to live on planet Earth is amazing if we can figure out how to not ruin it. And waterfalls are great, and butterflies are delightful, and octopuses are extremely cool, right? And fields of wildflowers, like I dare you to name a person who doesn't love a field of wildflowers. So I think the why can also be that. It doesn't have to be efficiency or faster transmission of information. It can also be to make space for beauty and joy. I think organizations, corporations, just really need to keep their eyes open about the context within which they're working and creating, right? It's so easy to get lost in the details. It's so easy to pick a problem to work on or solve that actually like isn't that big a deal. Just like a cool thing or a way to make a bunch of money or be popular or all of the other ways in which we fulfill our egos as individuals, as opposed to think about how to safeguard and protect the collective. And I think it's a huge responsibility to be a powerful organization in a moment that matters so much to the future of how we live on this planet. How can corporations lead by example? How can corporations step up their environmental commitments when politicians are failing to set those standards? How can we have a race to the top instead of a race to the bottom? I think it's very easy to be a purist and sort of write out the role of the private sector because it really hasn't been as forthcoming as we would need with making this rapid transition towards a regenerative economy. But what a huge opportunity, right? For inventing the future, for making sure there's a place for everyone in it, for creating safety and security, for protecting and restoring communities and ecosystems and cultures and ways of life and all the reasons that it's exciting to be a human. So I guess I think we haven't paid enough attention to the role of companies, of private sector organizations more broadly, to really be leaders in this change. I know a lot of companies are trying to do that, and without government often providing the framework and structure and standards, it's all very voluntary. We're like waiting on the goodwill of companies to put the planet and people at the same level or above profits, at least short-term profits. And to the extent that we maintain an economy driven by short-term profits, we are doomed, because we need to make shifts that are affecting decades and centuries that are just, we're not going to get there if all we think about is quarterly earnings. And we're also just, if we're that short-sighted, we miss the opportunity to like really create transformative change in beautiful and important and just and regenerative ways. And I don't know, I think that's pretty lame. Like there's so much potential and we just focus on like, how many dollars am I returning to my shareholders next quarter? And we're at a point where shareholders are like, actually, I only want to invest in things that are good for the planet, that are good for society. We, as individuals, are now holding corporations to a higher standard, and that is actually, I think, one of the next big trends we're going to see is like the impacts of that on corporate practices. In the same way that citizens, through their vote, can affect the future of policymaking and the laws in our country, they can also affect the direction of corporations. I mean, the power of a vote and the power of a dollar and the power of our voices are actually quite small as individuals, because if we think about the leaders that we hold up as iconic, as heroes, as individuals, what if no one listened to them? Like, what if no one followed their lead, right? Like Martin Luther King or Greta Thunberg could still be just like preaching to no one. And so I think we undervalue followers, and not just early adopters, but like middle adopters and late adopters, and like all the people who are joining in and making change possible. I think that's really important, because I can't save the planet alone, right? And I shouldn't have to try. I'm not trying. I'm thinking about, like, how do we welcome people in? How do we build the biggest, strongest team? How do we help everyone find their role? How do we build the tools that we need to facilitate all of these changes that need to happen, that let people bring their best, that let people contribute to problem solving? Yeah, so companies, get it together. We need you. There's more that they could be doing, for sure. What keeps me going is I really like this planet. I know that sounds like a little ridiculous, but I'm just madly in love with nature. And I think humanity has its good moments too. And I just know it's possible. And I know that if we don't address the climate crisis, if we don't protect and restore ecosystems, there's going to be so much needless suffering and pain and heartbreak, and it just doesn't have to be that way. And it's a choice, right? Not every single person on this planet caused the problems that we are facing to the same degree, right? It's, when we zoom out and think about it, it's a relatively small group of powerful people who have created a lot of destruction without permission of the rest of humanity. And so on like my most optimistic days, I like to think of a relatively small group of people who can turn the tide and shift things back, who can instigate the cultural and political and economic and business shifts that we need, right? Because it's about instigators, it's about inflection points, it's about how we start to see things pivot. Who's going to make those shifts happen? And that's really exciting to me. It's completely overwhelming, but it also is very much this set of possibilities, all these opportunities for creating the future that we want, protecting people, protecting nature, protecting culture, protecting our ability to live safely and well on this planet. And honestly, like, we're not all gonna go to Mars. Like, we really have to figure it out here. So what does that look like? And it's really scary, because these are the highest possible stakes. What is the future of life on this planet for humans? And so it is necessary for us to each figure out what role we play in shaping that and what tools we can bring to bear for that. And it's overwhelming, but I keep going because I think it'd be really depressing to just give up and sit around and watch as the world burns and melts and people are harmed.